So your exhibition in Baltimore closed, I think, 10 days after it opened. Can you tell us what you were thinking when you conceived the exhibition, or what one would be able to see if one would be able to go to the museum?
Yeah, the Baltimore exhibition has like two parts, and one is a group of paintings from the last 5-6 years. And then there is another space behind that you would enter after seeing those paintings, and that was something that I made for the museum. It's a big piece of fabric that is 3 or 4 times the size of the blueprint of the floor. And then it gets crammed into the space and drawn up under the ceiling. So you enter the space, and what you see from the outside is just this very interesting amorphous form of draped cloth, and then you can walk through the slots into the work. And what is really fascinating about this thing is that you not only see a lot, but you also have a very different kind of perception of your body. It is very muffled inside that piece. It is quiet. It changes your perception of the space right away.
Is there something that you for you is different to the installations in Sydney, which was much larger, and at K11, which was again in a very different space?
Yeah, Carriage Works is actually a theatre. It's not an exhibition space for visual arts. And therefore I was in a context where there is nothing else shown but theatre or ballet or dance or performances. Whereas in K11, it's a shopping mall in Shanghai, one of those really amazing buildings of 84, 85 floors, and in the ground zero, so to speak, is the K11 Art Museum of Adrian Cheng. And what was fantastic for me to see with Baltimore, there is this very rich painting collection, and in the core of it is a Matisse collection. And also in terms of the scaling, you know, it's not a small room, but it's not more than, I think, 400 square meters. So I could all of a sudden try out to make the smallest version of a very large piece and find out what is maybe the condensation of Sydney and K11. So that was very fascinating for me to try.
The Baltimore exhibition was one of the sort of few instances where you were, as a visitor, you were able to see a large site-specific installation alongside a group of canvases that were painted in the studio. Do you remember why you've chosen those specific canvases?
Yeah, I wanted to show different perspectives on my work. I did choose a small canvas that was covered with, actually dug into soil and then taken out, and everything that was covered with soil was left free. So that was one way of covering or making unseen something in the work, excluding this part of the canvas. And then I had one of those cluster paintings where I think the ability of painting to kind of negotiate the paradox of beginning and end and everything at the same time. And then we had one very large painting that's very pronounced, where the stencil works that I've done come from very intricate, small, delicate structures that kind of perforate one another. So these 3 were very important. I can remember that these were kind of showing different strands of my practice.
Yeah, they also always, to me, like the ones on canvas, on paper, they really seem like the work goes beyond the canvas.
When you come to my studio, you know that it's sometimes difficult to see the work, even because everything is painted. The movements that I use are actually very enlarged movements. They are far bigger than any kind of circumference that I could reach with my hands, because I use the airless gun that makes me have not only an infinite supply of paint, but also like this reach. So I started to think that maybe the movement comes from outside.
That almost sort of reminds me of I think the first site-specific work you ever did in the Kunsthalle Bonn. I think of you standing on the ground and trying to sort of reach that far corner that basically the sort of spray gun enabled you to reach.
Yeah, but it has also to do with the ability of your eyes to go really far and draw something into your perception. Peripheral vision is actually bringing a lot of information to us, far more than we think. I remember things that have been very, very important to me, and I just passed by, and saw them in a flick of a second. And I can still come home and say, oh, I saw that thing, I have to find out what it was. And that's maybe a big difference to the canvas paintings. The canvas paintings are really having a body relationship to you that's in front of you, I think. These installed works are really generating a totally different degree of eye activity.
And that's maybe something that I really feel very strongly with your work, the sort of what you mentioned, the relationship of the body and how you move within those immersive environments, and the relation that you have to your often very large-scale paintings on canvas is really something that absolutely doesn't translate onto a screen, and the scale and the movement is something that one can really only experience in person.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm already thinking that the Berlin show is going to be for the people of Berlin, in a sense. But that is true for a lot of shows. I think a fascinating question. How can a work survive if you can't see it in person? And I think it can.